Over the last couple of years, I have not had a good relationship with Star Wars Battlefront II. It was one of those games where I made the mistake of not really loving the beta as much as I thought I would, and then still buying the game at launch, hoping it would get better. But my problem with the game was never microtransactions or content. Of course, that was a massive issue, and I am very thankful that that got fixed and didn't remain a stain on both EA, DICE, and Battlefront 2. I think they have more than made up for their mistake, especially since they completely undid it. My problems felt so severe, I described this game as baby's first FPS. I talked about it like it was made for dumb children, and while I still share many of the complaints I had about it, recently I decided to embrace the game. Maybe it's because I'm a Star Wars fan that's recently been on a Star Wars binge, watching my favorite Star Wars movies and watching all the way through the Clone Wars. Having just beaten Jedi The Fallen Order, I really wanted more Star Wars games to play, and I was dabbling with LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, which if you guys want me to stream, go ahead and let me know in the comments section. Also LEGO Star Wars 3 The Clone Wars, which would be a much better game if it was based on the later seasons in the show, but whatever. But I also played some classic Battlefront 2 and some Republic Commando, and I thought, God, I wish I liked Star Wars Battlefront 2. I started watching some videos from the Star Bazaar on Battlefront 2 and the content that had been added and some tips and tricks guides and everything, and I thought, what if I go out of my comfort zone, dive into a game that I once ridiculed for its design, and embrace it and see if I can get good at it. I also learned that the co-op mode allows you to level up your characters, your heroes, your classes, your reinforcements, and you can of course get skill points and upgrade your star cards and level up and all that good stuff. So I decided that, okay, well, co-op allows me to progress in the same way that Titanfall 2's PvE allowed you to progress, so I thought, what the hell? I jumped in, and the first thing I was greeted with was realizing I didn't have a lot unlocked. The only class I had put any time into was Assault, and I still only had the default Officer and Specialist blasters, and I hadn't leveled up the first, I think it's the DC-15, the first blaster you get for the heavy class. I hadn't leveled those up at all. So I hopped into co-op, sort of just expecting to get my aim on track, because this game handles a lot differently than any other shooter that I play. Gunplay is different, and although I've criticized it a lot, and I would love a Star Wars game with a lot snappier gunplay with faster moving projectiles and more of a, I'm sorry if this is cringy, but more of a Call of Duty Battlefield style, aim down your sights and fire and move. That very fluid feeling that I've kind of become accustomed to, and that's sort of my preferred. But either way, with Battlefront 2, I decided to embrace the way its gunplay works in the co-op mode and learn how to lead shots and how to go for headshots and which guns do what, and overall just figure out how the game works. And then I was pleasantly surprised just with how fun the co-op mode is. Yesterday, I played the co-op mode from noon to 2 a.m. So over 12 hours of Battlefront 2. Of course, there were breaks and I got food and I, walked around for a bit because I'm not an absolute slob. But I didn't make a YouTube video. I didn't get any recording done except for the gameplay you're seeing here. And I just enjoyed myself for a whole day because I make my own schedule and luckily I can do that. I thought I should focus on the fundamentals, looking up what the best star cards are, getting used to the gunplay, and leveling up my classes, heroes, and reinforcements. Also taking some time to really master a reinforcement so I can be more proficient with it when I'm able to play with them, like the ARC Trooper or the Clone Commando. And when I started focusing on the fundamentals and looking at it with a fresh perspective, like there was something to the game that I wasn't getting before, and I needed to understand it, I actually came into an understanding. So let's go through my old criticisms, starting with the gunplay. I used to criticize the gunplay as being completely lacking of skill, clunky, floaty, time to kill is way too high, and while I still agree with that to a small degree, after really focusing on the fundamentals and unlocking modifications for God's sake, I learned so much and started to really feel proficient by the end of my play session. Even though I was starting to get tired, my hand was starting to cramp a little bit, but I felt like I had learned something, like I had obtained something that was previously missing from my knowledge base in this game. Like just a simple recoil reduction modification for a couple blasters completely changed my perspective on them. And while I definitely think some blasters are just inherently better than others, and I wish there were more infantry blasters to customize and play with, as I've learned to aim for the head and pace my shots and use weapons at their effective ranges, I've actually become a lot more confident in the gunplay, and I'm a lot less critical of it. The gunplay is not my preferred style of gunplay, but it is unique, which is a rare thing to see in the FPS market. It's actual unique gunplay. I feel like the learning curve is a little higher than I first anticipated. What I once thought was randomness, I now realize rewards patience and understanding of the game and its attachments and weapons. Now, the other criticism I had of the game was how every game mode and map seemed to just funnel players into really tight clusterfucky choke points. And while I'm not a huge fan of that, the real reason I was criticizing it, if you guys remember or watch any of those old videos, is because, in my opinion, it removed your choice. You had less choices as the places you get to play on get smaller and smaller and become more of a corridor crawl, meat grinder sort of thing, and that can be frustrating when you've come from DICE's other games like Battlefield 3 and 4, which really encouraged you to get a little bit more experimental and play the whole map, and the map played more like a sandbox, and that's what I wanted from Battlefront 2, it's what I wanted from the first Battlefront as well. And while I do believe it's limiting, I didn't look in the right places for the choices that I wanted to be able to make. The choices are more similar to something like Overwatch or Rainbow Six Siege, weirdly enough. It comes down to your abilities and your gadgets, and while at first I didn't respect that aspect of the game, I sort of embrace it now. In tight, cramped corridors, your choices come down to what character would be the most helpful, what class, what reinforcement, what hero would be the most beneficial to my team, because before, I was very stubborn. I wanted to just play as a assault trooper. I just want to play as an assault trooper, and that's all I wanted to do. I wanted it to be a more Battlefield-like infantry game, but now I've realized that this game is about what you choose in that loadout screen. It's about what you put into those characters, what star cards you have equipped, what blaster you're using. And while, yeah, you can be stubborn like I was and just wish it was Battlefield and try to play it like Battlefield, it's not Battlefield, it's Battlefront, and you play it differently, and that's very hard for me to come to terms with. It doesn't have a sandbox in the style of something like Battlefield, but it has a sandbox in the style of something more like Overwatch. Like I said, it's about picking your abilities and weapons and equipment more than picking which area of the map you want to be on and which vehicle you want to go hop into. And while I prefer that in Battlefield, I think a Star Wars game in the style of something like Battlefield 3 or 4, or even Bad Company 2, would be a lot more fun than this. This has a lot more value than I gave it credit for. Telling you a short story here, back in the day, my girlfriend was really into Halo 4, and this is when her and I just met. We were a lot younger, but she was really into Halo 4, and I was really into Battlefield and Call of Duty, and although I had loved the Halo franchise before, and I had played a lot of them, I wasn't good at them. So back in the day, I learned how to play Halo 4, and the realization I had to come to was that this does not play like other shooters. It is not like COD and Battlefield, and if I don't adjust and adapt, I'm going to have a miserable time. So I embraced Halo 4 for what it was, and ended up getting pretty damn proficient and pretty damn confident at the game. Halo 4's multiplayer will always have a special place in my heart, because I learned it not just for my girlfriend, but to sort of take myself out of my gaming comfort zone and learn a new set of skills and tactics, which I think made me a better player in general, just overall. It is in my opinion that what makes Battlefront 2 different is what makes Battlefront 2 good. It's not about running around as the assault class and just winning gunfight after gunfight like I'm playing Battlefield or Call of Duty. It's embracing the other kits and loadouts, the vehicles, the heroes, the reinforcements, and that's important. I was a lot more stubborn before. I still believe that Battlefront would be a lot more fun if it was like Battlefield, or if it was like Call of Duty even, if it just had a lot tighter controls, it felt a little bit more competitive and a little less clusterfucky. I would love a Battlefront game with just infantry combat, just first-person infantry combat on wide-open maps, and kind of play more similarly to Battlefield. I would love that a lot more. But there was my problem with Battlefront 2. I kept thinking about what I would do with a Star Wars shooter and what I would make DICE do with a Star Wars shooter. And I think that's what really bugged me, is that DICE just hasn't made something like Battlefield 3 or 4 in a long time. And that really bothers me because that's the style of game I love from them. And Battlefront 2 being more of a corridor crawl, funnily clusterfucky thing where you could be an infantry player with really good aim and you could be mowing down everybody, but then, someone playing as Anakin Skywalker comes up and cuts you in half, and what are you gonna do? But that's the part of the game I didn't embrace, and now that I'm willing to embrace it, I realize that Battlefront 2 might not be a good shooter, but it is a fun Star Wars game. It is a fun, competitive Star Wars game. And not competitive in the sense that it's balanced and consistent, but it's competitive in the sense that it's your ability to adapt versus the enemy's ability to adapt. It's picking the right kit, it's picking the right character, it's leveling up your characters and unlocking abilities for them through playtime, so when somebody comes in and can go on a 70 kill streak with Anakin, you know that they worked for that. Seeing a need and filling a need is the name of the game, and since I'm willing to embrace that, I am willing to end this video by saying Battlefront 2 is a very fun video game. Is it my ideal shooter? No. But is it a good Star Wars game? I think I'm actually gonna have to say yes. I don't want this video to be 20 minutes long, so I'm gonna cut this here, but I do want to make more videos on this game, and I also want to live stream it a bit more, and I don't want to just sit and complain about it anymore. The game is what it is, and the developers are continuing to support it, add content to it, update it, and fix things in it, and now I'm willing to learn it. So this might be a new chapter for this channel if this game maintains my interest. Only time will tell. Maybe it's just a little flash in the pan thing. But I had to do a lot of thinking after my incredibly fun 15-hour play session of Battlefront 2's co-op mode. Not even its multiplayer with all of the maps and eras and everything, just playing mostly Republic era co-op just has really brought me in. If you stayed to this point in the video, which would surprise me, please give me some tips down in the comment section below for Battlefront 2, because I don't want to suck at it too bad, and since I'm willing to learn, I'm also willing to listen. So go ahead and leave me some tips down below. I'll see you when I see you. May the Force be with you.